98% of all the ideas you ever have will end up in the trash can. If you just write from your own life, your writing is always going to be poor. The one thing I vowed never to do is become a professional. I don't know about inspire, but at least I'll try not to bore you guys, right? That should be left for after you get drunk. Then it becomes harder. So, I think I'm supposed to talk about like how my passion helps me work. So I might have been working for approximately 10,000 days, and I've got to confess, I haven't worked for one single day of those 10,000. That's because I'm a writer by trade, whatever, I've got some other designation I don't give a shit about. But I'm a writer by trade, copywriter sometimes, mostly. I started writing for the love of it, not always, though in college I was writing to fund some of my somewhat harmless vices, right? Didn't have the money but had the vices, so I used to write love letters and poems for people who didn't have the skills. And somehow I stumbled into advertising, discovered I sucked at writing. Had some amazing teachers like Neil French, Steve Hayden, the guy who wrote the famous 1984 Apple commercial, Rick Boyko, Dan Wyden, the whole hell of a lot. So I wish they were talking to you instead of me. You'd have learned a hell of a lot more. But that's what it's been. So the whole thing about writing is that if you just write from your own life, your writing is always going to be poor, right? Because it will only come from your own. The whole point of writing is, again, to dip into as many wells as possible, which is where my second passion comes into play, which has caused a lot of discord in my marital life because my wife and I will often go out for dates to nice romantic restaurants or nice places. And I'll be more interested in the conversation that's happening in the next table and building up a backstory in my head about what's going on in their lives, right? Oh, are they headed towards divorce? Is there an affair going on? So I'll build up a whole backstory about that and I'll talk to her about it. And say, but we've sat here for 2 hours and we haven't talked about us. And say, one day I made the mistake of saying, but us is not as interesting as them. That, I think, I slept on the couch metaphorically for a couple of weeks. If you want to, in a sense, keep your sex life active, don't talk to your wife like that, I think. It's surefire. This thing. So that's the whole point of it, is that just given by my experience, right? If you are passionate about what you do and you bring it to work, one of the things that that really helps me is that all these years, right, nearly 30 years doing this, the one thing I've vowed never to do is become a professional. I've always try to remain a very passionate, enthusiastic amateur. Because amateur brings a lot of curiosity, all of this, and none of the freaking cockiness, right? The thing that I know this shit, try to avoid that like the plague. The other thing is learn how to handle rejection, right? If you're a copywriter by trade, and some of you would know it, being marketing guys and all that, you reject most of the ideas that come to you. What happens is that most of the ideas that the creative person has come up with have been rejected inside this thing. So I used to do portfolio nights for the one club when I worked in the US. They run the One Show Awards and stuff like that. And I used to tell these kids, be sure you love what you do, because in this business, 98% of all the ideas you ever have will end up in the trash can. Some you'll kill, many of your bosses will kill, and the ones that remain will be slaughtered by the client. And that's just the nature of the business. So the ability to take that slap on the face, get up and say, I'm going to attack this problem from another angle in this thing, and I will never give up. And fortunately, I learned that lesson. The greatest commercial ever created is the 1984 commercial for Apple. If you guys haven't seen it, go ahead and see it. It was created about, nearly 40 years back. That was the 37th commercial written. And it was approved by Steve Jobs himself. 37th. And it was the 14th commercial script that Steve Hayden had written. So the teams of people who had written and stuff got rejected. What finally ended up being made is the greatest commercial ever made. So the thing is, you think you've got something great, let go of it. If circumstances don't support it, maybe fate is waiting for you to hit something even bigger. And that's this whole thing is all about. And that's why, being passionate comes about, right? Because passion does not listen to reason. When reason will tell you, you know what, this is a lost cause, give up. But passions are like, frick it, man, it's okay, it's my head on the wall. The wall's going to break before my head does, and you keep on banging your head against it. One day that wall does. And that's behind some of the great work that I've been fortunate to do, like work that's been nominated for an Emmy, been in the Museum of Modern Art and all that. I had a hard time. I was a brown boy in New York, running a team, working on AT&T Wireless, and we were presenting work to the CEO, John Zieglist of AT&T Wireless. The guy who was presenting before me was Steve Hayden, the man who wrote that commercial for this thing, and now was presenting next. I could have said, forget it, it's done deal. But I probably presented the best I ever did in my life. Also, fortunately, I used some Hindi cuss words slipped out of my mouth. So at the end of the meeting, two things happened. The commercial I wrote got approved, and John Zieglist came out as I was leaving. He said, "Hey, Bobby, I want to talk to you for a second." And I said, "What?" I thought, shit, yeah, nee, don't do that commercial. I was shit scared. He said, "What did you say in the middle of the meeting there? You slipped something out." I said, "No, nothing. I was just trying to this thing." He said, "No, you said something." I said, "No, I knew I was caught." I said, "Every time you come to a meeting," and I told him the meaning of it, and I also said, tell him that as well. But I had to teach him a new Hindi cuss word that he could use in his own meetings. So that's this thing is that when you're interested, you will be interesting, and the stuff that you do will be interesting. And the other thing is that one of the things that I think Rick Boyko taught me, right, was that he told me right at the get-go, just after I got into New York, he said the creative director can always be wrong. And that's the mindset you need to take to this thing, is that, okay, you have your preconceived notion, but hear what the room has to say. Try to build on it before you knock it down. It's easy to say no. It's very hard to build something. And some of the greatest work that's been done in advertising or otherwise, when somebody had an idea and somebody else built on it, right? The world is not made by critics or naysayers, it's built by architects. And they're built by consensus builders, people who constructively add on to things. So yeah, in that sense, that's my freaking story. I don't know if it's 9 minutes or not, but I'm not much of a timekeeper, right? I still wear an analog watch, so it runs either fast or late, depending on my mood.